Sholom. tell us that we're good and not horrible all the time. I would be out of position if I used that tact on all bases. I just don't get it in terms. Well, I guess that's why the leadership is sinking. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Rabbi.
How are you?
Thank you.
Good to see you. Irving, my Lanzu. Belarus, Ukraine, St. Paul. I'm not a Lit. No, I can't say Litva. That was too far north for me.
I used to get teased because my two synagogues I was in, one in Jackson, New Haven, it was all Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah. A little bit, yeah. It's been a while, but I understand. I understand more than I can speak. It's like my Russian. So who's davening here? Yeah, Don right now.
I'm doing the first reading, so if you could just stay here and correct for me, and then I'll slide in. That would be great. Oh, okay, so that'll work. That'll be great. Okay.
Wood Synagogue.
Realize that, that takes a while.
I love it. I love all your tunes. And I love that you mix it up too, so I never know what's going to happen. I like that too. There's nothing wrong with variety, in melodies. Hi, Deborah. Shabbat Sholom. I'd love to teach all the Shabbat Zmirot to everybody. I love that stuff. At our Shabbat dinners, I introduce two. We'll do two two new ones every time we get together. All right, how are we doing time? Oh, we still have a couple minutes. That's a little fast. But is that the official clock? I have 3 minutes. Yeah, I have about 3 minutes. You have the official clock. I thought I had the official clock. Greenwich time, all set. By the way, one of the great museums to go to is the museum in Greenwich. The Museum of Clocks and Time. It's fascinating. Greenwich? No. No. Meridian, the Meridian line is in London, Greenwich. Yeah, you see the exact. It's interesting how that became the center of time. You know, why there? Because British Empire. No, you're giving him now too much credit. We talked about Yochanan ben Zakkai last night. Not on time. That was not his thing. Great Rav, though. Great Rav. I've got a minute and a half. Might as well start on time. I learned to start on time in London. Every time that it was a Yeki congregation boy, and they 9:30, ding. So they started at 10 there, 10 in the morning.
10 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
What time did you finish?
12:15. Depending if there's a bar mitzvah, 12:30, that kind of thing. It's okay. We can start at 8 o'clock. I used to go to shul in Jerusalem at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd have the whole day
And then go home.
after
and go home
Shachar,
and sleep
yeah.
for 3 hours before lunch.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, right. So, it just depends where you're at. All right. Well, I have 30 seconds. We're going to be right on time. Come on in, everybody, if you're out there. Stan's not here. Where's Stan? Huh? Oh, I see. That's what's going on out there. Okay. Yeah. All right. I think now we are ready. It's Tesha v'chetzi. Oh, Stan. I was just thinking, where's Stan? Page 147, Shochenad.
Shochenad maram v'kadosh shema.
Echatu tzadikim b'Adonai l'shorim navati hila b'fishem titala. Yori tzadikim tiparav shal chasim titrabam.
V'fishem tisal l'mdivrei tzadikim tisparach u'vilshon chasidim tisramam u'vekerev kadoshim tiskadash.
Makalot rivavot amcha be'Yisrael karina.
Lehodos, lehalel, leshabeach, lefoer, leromem, lehader, levarech, lehalel, kales, al kol divrei shiros, shiros v'sishbachos David, ben Yishai, avdecha Meshichecha.
Ishtabach Shimcha Ad Malkeinu Ki Lechana Adonai Barachot
Brachos v'hodos me'ata ve'ad olam. Baruch atah Adonai el melech gadol batishbachos el hahodos adon haniflos habocher b'shirei zimra melech
Please rise. Chatzi Kaddish.
Yiskadal, Yiskadash, Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yamadi Brak Yusei, Yamlif Machusei, B'chayechon V'yomechon V'chayed Chobes Yisrael, B'agalav Isman Karib Imrel.
Amen. Hey, Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Amameh Mayah.
Yisparach, Yishabach, Yispar, Yisramam, Yisnasei, Yishadar, Yisalev, Yishalal, Shemei de Kusha Pere.
Rihu.
Leila Minko Berchasa Veshirasa. Tush Berchasa Benechemasa. Dami Rabbi Amma Ve'imra.
Amen. Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu es Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Amvorach Elam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. Baruch Atah Adonai Elohim V'nesaron V'choshech. Oseh Shalom V'rechacho. Page 150. Akol Yaducha V'Hakol Yishapchucha. Ayel B'Teilu V'Yadad Hashem V'Nisra V'Yadad. Mirle V'Yadad Hashem V'Yadad. Uvetuvo Mechadesh V'Chad Yom Tamim Ma'aseh Bereshit. Adonu Zeinu Thu Miskapeinu Meganishin Miskapateinu. Confidence of Latin.
Ein ke'erkecha Adonai Eloheinu ba'olam hazeh, ve'ein zulas kamalkeinu l'chayei ha'olam haba. Efes biltecha go'aleinu limos haMashiach, ve'ein domeh lecha Moshienu, l'zchiyas ha'mesim.
Amesim. Eladon. Page 151. Amasim. Baruch Borach. B'fikol neshama. Gadol b'tuvo. Malei olam. Das zbuna. Sovevim oto. Eladon. Akol hamasim. Baruch Umborach V'fikol neshama Hamiskael Al Chayot HaKodesh Nemar B'chavod Al HaMerkava Zevot u'mishor Lifnei Chiso Chesed v'rachamim Lifnei kevodo El Adon Akol ha'masim Baruch Umvorach V'fikol neshama Tavim me'orot Shebara Eloheinu Yitzhara B'das V'vina uvaskel Kohura Natan Bahem Li'yos Moshlim B'keref Tevel El Adon Akol ha'masim Baruch Umvorach V'fikol neshama Meleim ziv Ufikim noga Noezimam V'chol ha'olam Smeichim Tzeitam V'sasim bevoam Osim b'yema Retzon konam El Adon Akol ha'masim Baruch Umvorach V'fikol neshama V'chavod Nasolim lishmo Barachina L'zecher malchuto Kara l'shemesh Vayizrach or Ra'a v'hitkin Tzurat havana Adon Akol ha'masim Baruch בפי כל נשמה שבח נותנים לו צבא מרום תפארת וגדולה שרפים ויופנים וחיות הקודש אל אדון על כל המעשים ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה. Beautiful. Page 152. That's a jewel done. ביום השביעי מזמור של יום השבת טוב להודות אדוני. אמן ומגלים לישראל בקדושת יום שבת קודש. תיפרח מושנו שבמעשה
תתברך מושנו שבח מעשה ידיך ועם אורי אור שעשיסה
יפרוך השם. Page 153. תתברך צורנו מלכנו גואלנו בריא קדושים. כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, בכולם עושים רצון כולם.
כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים באימה וביראה רצון כנם. וכולם פוסקים את פיהם, בקדושה ובטהרה, בשירה וזמרה, ומברכים, ומשבחים, ומפארים, ומעריצים, ומקדישים, וממליכים.
את שם אלוהים המקדש וקדשו, וכל המקדש וקדשו.
וכולם מקבלים עליהם ומלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונושאים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש יוצרם מנחת רוח, בשפה ברורה ובנעימה קדושה, כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה. קדוש
קדוש קדוש אדוני צבאות, לא כל הארץ כבודו, והאופנים וחיות הקודש.
האופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנשאים לעומת השרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים.
ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ליל ברוך ממוצאנו. בעל מלחמות, צורי הצקדה מצביע ישועה בורא ורפואות נורתילות ונפלאות. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמים עשה בראשית כאמור. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו.
אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך שמו.
יוצר עם אורו.
Amen. Page 154. Ahava Rabba Avtanu Adonai Eloheinu. Avinu ha'avraham kamalei v'timli v'en rabbi z'lishvel l'shvel. U'lekayim et kol v'titzama tzarad yava. V'ha'erene b'toratecha. Yeshuatecha v'havi'inu l'shalom mirba kanfot. Ha'aretz v'tolichenu kam l'tzenu kil b'shuatav. ובנו וחרצנו
וקרבתנו לשמך הקדוש על באמץ, להודות לך ויחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
אמן. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך, בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשופך, ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Page 156, והיה אם שמות תשמע מצוותי ישמרו לכם פן יפתה לבכם. לא תיתן. שמתם את זרעיהם, שקשרתם אותם להיות עליכם, והיו לטוטפות לימדתם אותם לדפניכם. וכתבתם, לתת להם כי אם השמיים על הארץ, ויאמר אדוני משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ויעשו להם ציצית, על כנפי ידיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בצל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם, ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אדוני אלוהיכם.
אמת יציב ונכון. אמת. דור ודור משמע טוב, שמחת ופרמות וביד קיים.
מדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים, וכיסו נכון, ומחוסו באמונתו לעד קיים.
ודבריו חיים וקיימים. הלל מילה לבצע. זרע ישראל עבדיך ראשון ופתח. אמת ואמונה חופו יעבור, אמת שתחתם לבתינו. וכנו לבתינו.
עודנו מצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך.
עזרת אבותינו ואמותינו אתה מעולם. ברום עולם מושבך, משפטך וצדקך הארץ. אמת ממך למקום. ממצרים גאלתנו. יחסו מים צריהם נחמת לעומת הר אשר שגרו בהם. יוני דיון בשבם אליו תילות ים ברוך משה
תהילה ישראל יום ברוך ומברך, משה ומרים ובני ישראל ולכנו שירה, בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם.
מי כמוך אלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. יחד.
שירה חדשה שפוגלים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו.
Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Please rise, nalakum. To Yisrael, Kuma b'Yezrat Yisrael, Ufedek rumecha, Yehuda v'Yisrael. Go aleinu, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael.
Baruch atah
Baruch
Adonai
Shemo.
All Yisrael.
Together we begin the Amidah, Shacharit Shabbat, page 159, through the Kedusha together, and the remainder of the Amidah in silence through page 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avosseinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak
Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El HaGadol, HaGibor HaNorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Hasdei HaKol, U'mevi Goel V'neihem, L'man Shemo V'yava, Melech Ozer Fokid Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham, Ufokei Sarah, Hagibor Le'lam Adonai, V'chayei Meitim Akarav L'Moshiach, Ori'ata, Mechakel L'chayim B'chesed, V'chayei Meitim B'rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim B'rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Milchamocha B'gurot, Umidom Emuah, Melech Menidum Lechayem, Matzmiyat Yeshua, Adonai, Mechayeh, Nikadesh Shem B'lam Shem Shemat Shemot B'Shmei Marom Kakatu V'Yad V'Yecha Karazel Zav Yamor.
Nekadesh es Shimcha ba'olam Kishem shemakdishim oso b'shmei morom Kakasu v'yad nevi'echa V'kara ze'el zeh v'amar
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Okol haaretz Kodo.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaos, Melech haaretz Kavodo. Oz b'kol ra'ash gadol, adir v'chazak mashmi'im kol, misnasim le'umas serafim, le'umasam, Baruch Yomeru.
Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimkomo, Mimkomcha.
Minkom pamakenu Sophia v'simloch aleinu ki mechakim anachnu la Masaitim loch b'tzion v'karav b'yameinu le'elam va'ed tishkon Tiskadal v'siskadash b'soch Yerushalayim ircha L'dor v'dor l'netzach nitzachim
Einenu tirena, tirena malchutecha, kadavar ha'amur, b'shirei uzecha. Einenu tirena. Yedei,
David,
David, Al Yedei, David, Al Yedei, David, Mashiach Tzidkecha, Al Yedei, David, Al Yedei, David, Al Yedei, David, Mashiach Tzidkecha. Hallelujah.
Ledor vador nagid God lecha, ulenetzach netzachim kedushas nakdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu layemush li'olam va'ed, ki el melech kadosh ata, baruch ata Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
el hakadosh.
Amen. Yismach Moshe b'matnat chelko. Shabbat vayinafash. Lo tzavay legoyer so. Kili Yisrael lo chanetato. Amen. Utafilatam yava. Itechasem. Atov kilo alav rachamech. Tov shikalachem adot shalom. Baruch atah Adonai Elohai mitzvot Hashem. Come on in, everybody. It's a lot of talk. These days I'll give a sermon on synagogue etiquette. It's very important. Interrupting during the Shema, Kedusha, a certain Mitah. Come on, everybody. It's a very, I was saying Don here, it'll be a very good sermon one day. Just to talk about some of the, there's a synagogue etiquette. Times when we're allowed to interrupt, times when we're not allowed to interrupt, and I think it might help you sometime. For example, we're not supposed to, during the Amidah, the Shema, go up to somebody and say, "Hi, how you doing, Mac?" During those two particular times, stay away, total focus on what we're doing here. And as a matter of fact, during the Torah reading too. Now, that is the ideal, but sometimes we go into, I've been in very noisy synagogues, especially in Israel. They're yapping through the whole davening. So there's ideal, and then there's reality. But that's for a different time. Page 167, Kaddish Shalem. Sorry about that. Amen. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevara Li'alam Alo Mehamaya Yiparach
Yisparach, Vishnabach, Vispar, Visrama, Visnase, Vishadar, Visalev, Vishalal, Shmei Kusha,
Brichu
the Elam in Kobrachasa, Vishirasa, Tushukasa, Nekamasa, Dami Rambia Mavimru,
Amen.
יתקבל צלצון ובלצון לכל ישראל, קודם אבהון דבשמיא ואמרה.
Amen.
יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא, וחיים עלינו בכל ישראל ואמרה.
Amen.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרה.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and Ruchim Habayim. Welcome to our always beautiful, intimate Shabbat services here, especially during off-season. Viktor Frankl, I probably referred to him before. Man's search for Man's Search for Meaning, the great psychologist who wrote about his experience during the Shoah and finding meaning. It's a subject we're touching upon today with the concept that's repeated 3 times in the Torah portion of Behar, and that is Yareta Adonai Elohecha, Yareta Adonai Elohecha. You shall fear the Lord your God. What exactly do those words mean? And why does it come at certain very particular times in the Torah? Perhaps to make a point that we should all know. So we're going to be sharing that concept of Yirat Adonai, fearing God. What does that mean? To me, it's a critical point of Torah ethics, and it perhaps says a lot about the state of our world today, in that there's a lack of Yirat Adonai. So that's just a little tease. Let's continue, page 168, the Torah service.
אין כמוך באלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך
מלכותך מלכות כל עמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז ימו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. אהבה רחמים היטיבה ברצונך את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים. כי בך לבד בטחנו, מלך ערם ונישא, אדון עולמים. You rise.
סהרון ויאמר משה
קומה אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו לשונאיך מפניך. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה תורה, ועמו ישראל יקדש עשה. From Pirkei Avot. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? Be among the disciples of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace, loving your neighbors and drawing them near to the Torah. Do not say, when I have leisure, I shall study. You may never find the leisure. Say little and do much, and greet everyone with a cheerful face. Beloved of God is humanity, for all are created in the divine image. A person who brings pleasure to other human beings thereby brings delight to the Creator. Let the honor of others be as dear to you as your own. Judge everyone on the side of merit. One who shames any person in public is not worthy of a share in the world to come. Be'ana rachet.
Be'ana rachet. Velishme kadisha. Kadisha yakira. Ana emarta ushpechan. Be'ana rachet. Be'ana rachet. Velishme kadisha. Kadisha yakira. Ana emarta ushpechan.
Tisiftach libi v'yoraita v'tash v'shali de'libahi ve'liba d'chol amach Yisrael l'tov l'chayim ve'l'ishlam. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shema. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shema. Gadlul Adonai Eti, Uneromema Shema Yachdav. Adonai Hagedullah V'Hageruha V'Hatiferet V'Hanetzach V'Hahod Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz Adonai Ha'malacha V'Hamishnaseh L'chol Rosh Romemu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu V'hishtachavu V'hishtachavu L'Adon Raglav Kadoshu Romemu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu V'hishtachavu L'Har Kodsho L'Har Kodsho Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Please be seated. Just an observation as a beautiful time when we see the Torah traveling through the congregation. We pay our respect by it. We kiss the Torah. And just a little context that we sometimes forget is that through the ages of history, in most places in the world, the adoration that we just saw for the Torah took place for another human being. The leader would come in and everybody would stand. The kings were like gods. They would kiss their feet. Or also, by the way, the church embraced that as well. The bishop, the cardinal, everything stopped. The adoration was towards a person. Those of you who are in my class know also, as I mentioned last week, that we Jews celebrate the life cycle, those high points in the Torah of our holidays, whereas most religions celebrated the birth and death of gods. So when you see the Torah coming through there, think of how revolutionary that was, that our adoration is for ideas and values and dreams, which make up the greatest adoration of all, beyond the material, beyond any human being, this higher authority. So that is the symbolism here. And that's why our people accented that throughout all the generations, to, in a sense, protesting what was going on, the lowering of humanity by worshiping a human being rather than God, rather than the ideas of our God. So that's why we do that. I think these little things as we go along, I think, are very important to understand. We're reading from the portion of Bahar. As I mentioned, this is a beautiful text about the oppression of the needy, of the poor, the laborer, all the slave, all the disadvantages, and the admonition. Lo tonu et amito, do not oppress your fellow, you shall fear God. Instead, we're going to be exploring that. And of course, the Torah emphasizes that the only way we can fulfill our understanding of God is by implementing that faith into real life every day, especially for those who are oppressed and those in need of empathy. There's a lot of talk about caring for the poor, caring for the needy, and nothing is done. Why people are getting very frustrated, because there's a lot of verbiage, a lot of talk, and not doing. And so we should think in this Torah, how are people who are disadvantaged, and it doesn't matter what their skin color is, or their ethnic background, or religious background. Franklin would say it's about values, not about who they are. And we've forgotten that. And we've forgotten, we label, and we place blame on this group or that group. But we sometimes forget, what is it that the poor around us really need to help their lives? That dialogue is missing, but it's in our Torah portion today. So I suggest that we all follow along as we start the Torah reading now on page 727 with the 29th verse. You ready? 2529. Page 742. That's the page number is wrong there. I don't know why it says 727. It's page 742. That's all the page numbers there are wrong. Yeah. I don't know how that happened. What? No, it's all wrong.
Are you?
So I got confused myself. I have to check this a few times. So. All right, we'll get there.
Yazar, Yagim Yashela Holocaustim Bovan Omar, Amen.
Amen.
Lakol Habugadol Eloheinu Snukavod La Torah. Are you Kohen Krov Yamod Michael Ben Moshe HaKohen Baruch Shenasan Torah Le'amo Yisrael B'Kedushato
Yatem Kim Badonai Elohechem
Yatem Le'Bekim Badonai Elohechem Chayim Kochem
Hayom. Baruch Adonai Barach Melam Vayed.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Vayed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Amin V'Natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Be'ish Kimikor Beit Moshav Irchama Vayetagalato Atom Shina Inkara Yamim Tiegulato Vim Lo Yigael Ad Melot Lo Shana Tamima Bekam asher ba'ir, asher lo choma, latzmitu, lakoneo to, ledoratav, lo yetze bayovel, uvate achatzerim, asher in lahem choma saviv, al sedei haaretz yechashev, gulat yalo, uvayovel yetze, viarei avim, batei arei achuzatam, gulat olam tiel alavim, vasher igam min alavim, viyatzam im karbayit, va'ir achuzato bayovel, ki batei arei alavim, hi achuzatam b'tov b'nei Israel, usadei migrash harehem lo yimachar, ki achuzat olam
Lahem.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam notav tzotenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yamod Eliyahu ben Gedaliah Halevi.
The second Aliyah is found on page 743, verse 35.
Interest.
Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Elam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Vayed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'chavanu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
וכי ימך אחיך ומטה ידיו עמך והחזקת בו גר וסושב וחי עמך. אל תיקח מאיתו נשק וסרביס וירשע מאלוהיך וכי אחיך עמך. אס כספך לא תיתן לו בנשק ובמרביס לא תיתן אוכלך. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים לעשות לכם את ארץ כנען להיות
לכם לאלוהים.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan v'lokeinu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Yamod Moshe Amaka Bracha Shlishi.
You're not up yet, son. No.
The third Aliyah is found on page 744, verse 39.
Seven. We'll get you.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Elam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'chavanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
וכי ימך אחיך עמך ונמכר לך לא תעבוד בו עבודת עבד כשכיר כשושב יהיה עמך עד שנת היובל יעבוד עמך ויצא מעמך הוא ובניו עמו ושב אל משפחתו ואל אחוזת אבותיו ישוב כי עבודי הם אשר הוצאתי אותם מארץ מצרים לא ימכרו ממכרס עבד לא תרדפו בפרך וירשע
Ta מאלוהיך.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natav v'tokenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Yishabera for Joel. Yishabera Chavatin Avram Misviak Sarah, Rivka Rachavalaya. Uyavarech et Yosef ben Moshe Umalka Bracha. שעלה לתורה לכבוד המקום, לכבוד התורה, לכבוד שבת, לכבוד קהילת הקודש הזאת, לכבוד יום הולדת שלו, הקדוש ברוך הוא יברך אותו, ואת כל משפחתו, וישלח ברכה והצלחה במעשה ידיו. עם כל ישראל לך ונאמר אמן. May God who bless our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, bless our dear Joel's servants, Yosef, the son of Moshe, and Malka Brucha, who has come to the Torah to honor God, to honor the Torah, to honor the Shabbat, to honor our congregation, and to celebrate his birthday with us. May the Holy One, blessed be he, grant to Joel and the entire family health, goodness, blessing, and continued celebrations. I see all four of you, and I was part of this celebration, which makes me extremely happy to see you guys again. Remember me? I hope so. But I really want to just mention Joel was here, that one was on Tuesday or when, I lose track of the days, on the floor, back and forth, working on the sound system, minding all the complaints we got about and he just did this out of the love of our congregation and making sure that everything ran smoothly here. You don't see this, I did, and I just want to publicly thank Joel for everything that you not only did this week, but everything you do all the time. So God bless you, my friend. You're fantastic. And your whole family. Good to see the kids. You know that they're welcome anytime, and I love the noise too, besides. No, I really do. It's the sounds of the future. How can you do this? Anyway, let's continue.
Yom
I'm kidding. Thank you, Joe.
I am David.
Let me say hi to the kids.
Ben Aharon.
Hi, guys.
Esther.
What do you have for me here? What's his name? Doggy? Puddles, Puddles.
The fourth
Puddles,
Aliyah is found on
Puddles.
page 744,
That's a
verse
beautiful
44.
place. See you guys. Shabbat Shalom. Puddles, I remember Puddles. Puddles. Amen.
Amen. V'yavtecha v'amatcha asher yihu lach me'eret hagoyim asher svivotechem mehem tiknu eved v'ama v'gam v'nei atoshavim agarim imachem mehem tiknu v'mishpachotem asher imachem asher holidu b'yartzachem v'hayu lachem lachuzah v'hitnachaltem otam livnechem acharechem laresh et achuzah le'olam bahem tavodu v'vachechem b'nei Yisrael ish b'echav lo
Devo b'farech. This is the big one here now. Yvonne, you coming? Good.
Harav Uri ben Yirmiyahu v'chana, Ruth bat Ari v'chana,
Have the people names again.
The fifth Aliyah is found on page 744, verse 47.
Asher
יאתגר ותושב עמך ומך אחיך עמו ונמכר לגר תושב עמך ובאחיו משפחת גר אחריהם נמכר גאולה תהיה לו אחד מאחיו יגלנו O dodo, O ben dodo yigalenu, O meisir besaro mishpachato yigalenu, O hisiga yodo v'nigla, v'chishav im konehu, mishnad hamkaro lo, ad shenod hayovel, v'haya kesef min karov, v'mispar yishanim, Sakir
Yemo.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah shemoneh v'chayei olam atah b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was. Please rise, everyone. We're going to do this very specially here. Mishaberach, Avotenu Avram Yaakov, Sarif Korach Avalaya, Uyavarech Adorav Uri Ben Yariam Bechana, Berut Bat Aryeh Vechana She'alu L'Torah, Likvod HaMakom, Likvod HaShabbat, Likvod HaTorah, Likvod Kilat HaKodesh Hazot, Likvod 50 שנה ברבנות. הקדוש ברוך הוא יברך אותה וכל משפחתו וישלח לך והצלחה במעשה ידיהם עם כל ישראל אחיהם ונאמר Amen. May He bless. Is it this week? So when you were okay, we're going to get into let me translate first. May He who bless our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Bless my distinguished colleague Rabbi Ed Weinsberg, Harav Uri Ben Yirmiyam with Chana, and Yvonne, Ruth, the daughter of Aryeh and Chana, who have come to the Torah to honor God, to honor Shabbat, to honor the Torah, to honor our congregation as they always do, and for allow us to mark the celebration of Rabbi Weinsberg's 50th anniversary of his ordination from the Jewish Theological Seminary. We went to the same institution. May the Holy One, blessed be He, grant nothing but blessing and goodness and success to you both in allowing me. I know what it was like, I can really understand. Mine's only 42, so we have a few more years. Oh, I'm so young. 8 more. I have a long way to go before I can have this moment.
Stick around. We want to honor you then.
I know, and I will be. So it's a real pleasure for all of us to honor my dear colleague. It is a great achievement in this. It's an interesting life as rabbi, and there are a lot of things that we don't know about Rabbi Weinsberg and Yvonne as well. And I learned that you went to UCLA, so that you were in my neighborhood when you were in school, and graduated from there. But has achieved so much in counseling and chaplaincy and the books that he's written, and what he contributes to our congregation is, of course, his involvement with Men's Club. In education, and both Yvonne and Rabbi Weinsberg were one of the early ones who came to me and welcomed me in the community and said, of course, we're here because we know what you're going through, and so it's a real honor for me to be with my colleague. I also had the honor of mentioning this at our rabbis meeting. I forgot the name of the Rabbis Association. What's it called? It's SMR, Manatee, our Rabbinical Association. And he's highly respected by his colleagues and certainly by this rabbi. And we're really blessed for having you both in our midst and allowing us to celebrate with you. May God give you, I want to be here at the 100th anniversary. Oi! You know what? I love Mazel tov. Are you kidding? Oh, you're always sweet to me, so we're even. Please be seated, everyone.
Rabbi, Rabbi Ed, stay there.
Mazel tov, sima tov, mazel tov. Yeilanu, what did happen here? Oh, thank you. Yeilanu, Ulecho Yisrael. Seminary's changed a lot, you know. Had the same group of Talmidei Chacham. Oh, Yisrael. My honor. A real honor.
Shishi?
Yes.
Shishi.
The sixth aliyah is found on page 745, verse 51.
Short Taliot. Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Vaed.
אמן. עם עוד רבות בשנים לפיהן ישיב גאולתו מכסף מקנתו ואם מעט נשאר בשנים עד שנת היובל בחישב לו כפי שניו ישיב את גאולתו כי זכיר שנה בשנה יהיה עמו לא ירדנו בפרך לעיניך ואם לא יגאל מאלה ויצא בשנת היובל
ובניו עמו. Amen. Shakor. Pleasure to have you. Thank you. Thank you. Stay here. Don't leave right away.
Shavi'i.
Shavi, Sai.
Yamod. Shimon Yaakov and Mordechai. Shvi'i.
The seventh aliyah is found on page 745, verse 55, toward the bottom of the page.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Vaed. Amen.
אמן. כי לי בני ישראל עבדים עבדי הם אשר הוצאתי אותם מארץ מצרים אני אדוני אלוהיכם לא תעשו לכם אלילים ופסל ומצבה לא תקימו לכם באבן משכית לא תיתנו בארצכם להשתחוות עליה כי אני אדוני אלוהיכם את שבתותי תשמרו, ומקדשי תיראו, אני אדוני.
No, Baruch.
Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam notar tochenu, baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Shekol. Please rise for our Misha Berak, for those who are ill. Misha Berak, Avotenu Avram B'Tzvi Yaakov, Sordivka, Rachel V'Leah, Yevaref Rebbe Kol HaCholim, Tevye Gershom ben Aaron Aviv Rivka, Tzvi Yitzra ben Shima V'Chaya, David Yosef ben Chanabasha, Yitzra bat Shulamit, Yitzra ben Shulamit, Rivka Shifra bat Sarah Razel, Taya bat Moshe v'Julie Rachel, Leila bat Sega, Leah bat Sarah, Ruth bat Ardi V'Chana, Shlomo Hillel ben Tzvi, Sheila Radman, Mary Barton, Akiva ben Menachem v'Rivka, Beryl Eliezer, Don Seeley, Sarah Brucha bat Bracha v'Tiva, Leah bat Naftali, Gedalia ben Chaya, Yoel ben Dov, Rachmiel, Julian Zimmerman, and Isis Zimmerman. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yemarei Rachamim Alehem Lachtikan Rapotam V'Yishlach Lahem Mehiram Refuah Shlema Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh U'Refuat HaGuf B'Toch Sha'ar Chol Leib V'Chazeki Dili Haoskim B'Tzorech Lehem Shabbat Hi Mlizvok V'Tvok Ravo Lavo Hashtab Mizman Kariv and Omar Amen. May God, who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bring blessing and healing to all of our loved ones we've mentioned in our prayers this morning, and to those in our hearts as well. May the Holy One mercy restore them to complete health and vigor, granting them physical and spiritual well-being, together with all others who are ill. May God grant strength always to those who tend to our loved ones in their illness. It is Shabbat. It's a day of peace. We do not cry out, yet we have in our hearts, of course, our hopes and prayers that healing is at hand, as we say.
Misha Berak Avotenu Mikor HaBeracha Imotenu. May the source of strength bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us fail. Amen. Mishaberach imotenu, mikor avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Chatzi Kaddish, remain standing.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah. V'yama divra kirte v'yamlik machutei. V'chayeka u'v'yamecha u'chayedecho beit Yisrael. Bargala u'bizman karib v'yimeru amen. Yesh be'rabba mevorach le'olam me'omaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kudusha le'ela min kol bechata v'shirata tushbechata v'nehemata amiram le'alma Yamod HaChazon, Nachum ben David, Vechana Maftir.
Chazak Baruch.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
כי לעבר ישראל עבדים עבדי עבדיים, אשר הוצאתי אותם מארץ מצרים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, לא תעשו לכם אלילים, ופסל ומצבה לא תקימו לכם, ואבן משכית לא תיתנו בידכם להשתחוות עליה, כי אני אדוני אלוהיכם, את שבתותיי תשמרו ומקדשי תיראו, אני אדוני. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Please rise.
Yamod HaMagbiat, Hamod HaGomelet, L'Sefer HaTorah.
Izot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Yadonai Yad Moshe.
וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל, על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה
ששם משה לפני בני. This is also called.
Shugia.
I didn't see that. Starting at Let's start with verse 13. Please be seated. We are turning to page 759 in our Chumash to read the words, the prophetic portion from Yirmiyahu from Jeremiah. For Bahar, we'll be beginning with the 13th verse, but let me introduce this. If not for Jeremiah, Josh Melitz would not have his position. If not for Jeremiah, every Zionist organization would be, we wouldn't hear about it because they wouldn't exist. If not for Jeremiah, there wouldn't be a state of Israel. There would not be a state of Israel. It's through the power of his message, of his ideas and his values, is the reason why we're sitting today with the miracle of Israel across the water. The year is approximately 590 BCE. The Babylonians are coming, if even then. Who knows? Jeremiah might have seen Jerusalem in flames at that point. It looked like our people were finished. There was no culture at the time that didn't see the central place of the cult as being the presence of God. This was the biggest test of all for the Jewish people, whether we were going to survive or not. And what did Jeremiah do when everybody was leaving Jerusalem? The temple was in flames. Everything was done. It looked like we were over. Believe me, if this happened here, people would say, that's the end. Rabbi, there's no God. There's no purpose for our being. What did Jeremiah do? He bought land in Jerusalem. The message was that we're going to be back and never to give up. Never to give up. It's an incredible thing he did. Nobody wants to buy real estate when everything's falling apart. So, Josh, you understand? You would have no position if not for Jeremiah. And we're glad you have that position because of it. But it's an incredible thing. It just shows the power of our sages and prophets in putting into place the things that we too often take for granted why we're here. And why there's Eretz Yisrael, the redemption of the land, which is what this is all about. This is the Haftarah for the Jewish National Fund. So if you haven't bought your trees to redeem your land and your property, buy in Israel, buy the wine, buy the cheese, buy those great peanut things that they sell. What is it? Yeah, they're so good, aren't they? Buy Israel. That's the point of the Haftarah. Kenner Newman, it's yours. It's true, though.
So again, we're beginning the reading this morning with verse 13 on page 759. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nei tovim v'chatza b'divrehem u'nemari be'emet Baruch atah Adonai Abocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'Nvi'ei ha'emet v'atzedek v'atzaveh baruch li'nehem v'emor k'amar Adonai tzvaot Elohei Yisrael lakoach et הספרים האלה את ספר המקנה הזה ויהיה חתום ויהיה ספר הגלוי הזה ונתתם בכלי חרס למען יעמדו ימים רבים כי כה אמר אדוני צבאות אלוהי ישראל עוד יקנו בתים ושדות וכרמים בארץ הזאת ואתפלל אל אדוני אחרי תיתי את ספר המקנה אל ברוך בן נריה לאמור אדוני אלוהים הנה אתה עשית את השמיים את הארץ בכוחך הגדול ובזרועך הנטויה לא יפלא ממך כל דבר עושה חסד לאלפים ומשלם עוון אבות אל חיק בניהם אחריהם האל הגדול הגיבור אדוני צבאות שמו גדול העצה ורב העליליה אשר עיניך פקוחות על כל דרכי בני אדם לתת לאיש כדרכיו וכפרי מעלליו אשר שם אתה אותות ומופתים בארץ מצרים עד היום הזה, ובישראל ובאדם, ותעשה לך השם כיום הזה. ותוצא את עמך את ישראל מארץ מצרים באותות ובמופתים וביד חזקה ובעזרוע נטויה ובמורא גדול, ותיתן להם את הארץ הזאת אשר נשבעת לאבותם לתת להם, ארץ זבת חלב ודבש. ויבואו וירשו אותה ולא שמעו בקולך ובתורתך לא הלכו, את כל אשר ציווית להם לעשות לא עשו, ותקרא אותם את כל הרע הזאת. הנה הסוללות באו העיר ללכתה, והעיר ניתנה ביד הכסדים הנלחמים עליה מפני החרב והרעב והדבר, באשר דיברת היה והנך רואה. ואתה אמרת אלי אדוני אלוהים, כי נלך שדה בכסף והעדדים, והעיר ניתנה ביד הכסדים. ויהי דבר אדוני אל ירמיהו לאמור, הנה אני אדוני אלוהי כל בשר, הממני יפלא כל דבר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות. האל הנאמן אומר יוסף, מדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו באמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים לדבריך, ודבריך בדבריך, אכול לא ישוב ריקם. כי המלך נאמן ורחמן, אתה ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן לכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי בית חיינו, ולעלו אתם אשתושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני. משמח ציון בבניה.
אמן.
שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך. במהרה יבוא ויגן ליבנו על כיסאו ישב זך, ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא יכבנהו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן דוד.
אמן.
על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמלוכה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל החי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני,
ברוך שמו,
מקדש השבת.
Well done. Oh, please. Please rise, everyone. Well done. Thank you, Cantor Newman. We are turning to page 177. We invoke the blessing for our country. Lots of thoughts. We hope and pray that our country remains strong in value, in dreams, and faith. Together, our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessing upon this land, on its inhabitants, on its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials. Faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have to create, so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land. Adonai, God whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship among the many peoples and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth. May you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. All of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. Let us say amen. On page 178, hasn't appeared yet, but your rabbi wrote another letter to the paper. I don't respond unless I feel I have to. There was a headline that said in the paper, Israel linked to killing journalists. The very tragedy of that Al Jazeera. There's no evidence of that. And I mentioned in my letter, said the real telling proof of this, you should all know that Israel's called for an investigation with the Palestinian Authority. They refused to do that. But the most important thing, if you have the evidence that Israel's responsible for this, you're going to show the whole world right away. They're keeping the evidence. They won't show anybody. So in other words, they're using the propaganda to create another blood libel against the Jew. It is a blood libel. When you see headlines like that, our people live through this in centuries of blood libels and lies about killing Gentile children. It's the same thing. Believe me, there's a whole undercurrent that's been going on in that part of the world for a long time. And we, gullible people in the West, eat it up. And we make headlines without even thinking what they say. But we, as Jews, should be ultra sensitive to these kinds of outrageous, completely lies about the state of Israel, about our people. It is really incredible. So I just wanted you to know that I did that. I don't know if they're going to print my letter, but I do respond. I feel I have to. Let's read the prayer for the state of Israel. They have to deal with this stuff every single day around the world. Avinu Shebashamayim, the stronghold and redeemer of the people Israel. Bless the state of Israel, the beginning of our redemption. Shield it with your love, spread over the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them, crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha, page 181. After me.
Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha, od Yerushalayim.
Ashrei ha'am shekach lo, Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav.
Tira v'David, Armi
בכל יום אברכך, על נפשך לעולם ועד. דור לדור ישבע מעשיך, ובגבורותיך יגידו. וסעודותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספרנה. חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדול חסד. יודוך אדוני, כל מעשיך וחסידיך וכולך. והודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, והדר מלכותו. סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, זכורך לך כפופים. פותח את ידיך ומשפיע לכל הרצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו וחסי בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ויש שבתם ישמע וישיים.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, וכל רשעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, יברך כל בשר שם קדשו לעולם ועד.
ואנחנו נברך יה, מצב יד עולם. Please rise.
Hallelujah, Adonai, ki niskavero, shemo levado.
Hodol ha'eretz v'shamayim, v'yaren keren liyamo, tefila le'ol hasidav, le'hivnei Yisrael am karovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai Elohim, Adonai kevod ba'oz, Adonai kevod shemo, yishtachavu l'Adonai b'hadar kodesh. Adonai ba'al hamayim el hakavod, hirim Adonai, Adonai hamayim rabim. Kol Adonai hakoach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vayshaber Adonai et hazerachim. O Egel, Lebanon, Sirion, Kemon, Ve'elim. Kol Adonai choseh labodesh, Kol Adonai yachil midbar, Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh. Kol Adonai yechol le'ayalot, V'yechesof ye'arov, U'vechalo kulo omer. Vayeshev Adonai lemelech leolam, Adonai oz li'amo yitei, Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom, uv'locho yomar. Ilech Adom natati lachem torati atachasochu. Natati lachem seated. Na'al hashevet. I won't keep you long this morning. As I mentioned, one of the critical, core values we read about in the Torah portion this morning, about especially the moving text about making sure that we always remember where we came from. As slaves in Egypt, never, ever are we allowed to oppress those in need in every social caste. And it's always accompanied with the words, Lo tonu amitoi, do not oppress your neighbor. V'yareit Adonai Elohecha, you shall fear God. Fear God. Incredible words. Always attached to taking advantage of the disadvantaged and the poor and the needy among us. Because the text emphasizes lachem, for you, which is a plural. It includes everyone among us, everyone in society, the poorest among us, deserve the greatest respect. All of God's creation made in the image of God. And so in all of our dealings, it says in the Torah, remember to fear God. To fear God. We're all connected. Taking advantage of another human being is as if we have tarnished the very image of God. And we think of ourselves as something beyond other people, we diminish the image of God in the world. And we have an obligation, the Torah repeats over and over again, to lift humanity, to lift the lowest echelons of society for sure, and to remember that you were slaves. The last section there deals with slavery, which was not a racial category, it was an economic bondage, of paying off debts. There's a lot of economic stuff, financial things in the Torah portion. But you remember you were slaves. You remember when you were brutally beaten. In fact, the same language as we were reading the text and stand in your aliyah, there's the word do not deal befarach, ruthlessly. It's the same word that's used with Pharaoh's treatment of the Israelite slaves. So how does this connect with you shall fear your God? Well, we have a couple of very vivid examples, and then we can look at each of the other many times that this is mentioned in the Torah. It speaks of fearing God and keeping the Shabbat. It's also mentioned fearing God with regard to respecting your parents. That the same language is used. But the two most vivid examples I want you to specifically remember. In Leviticus 19, we can look at the verses, but you're going to have to trust me on my paraphrasing. It says in the Torah text, do not place, this is in chapter 19 of Vayikra, in the Holiness Code, you shall not place a stumbling block in front of the blind. You can't hear? Really? Joel, I take my words back. That was a joke. Sorry, Brenda. Especially for you, my student. Can you hear now? Is it better? Okay. So it says in the Torah, you shall not place a stumbling block in front of the blind. And then it says you shall not curse the deaf. And then it says you shall fear God. It's 19:9, something like that in the Torah portion. So what is the connection? It's a very vivid example. When you place a stumbling block in front of the blind, nobody can see you do that. When you curse the deaf, that person can't hear you. In fact, there might be nobody around to hear you cursing the deaf. The vivid example is because, of course, there are bigger issues, but the idea is the governing part of your life should be the higher authority of God. What should prevent people from doing things that they shouldn't do is not because someone's going to be caught or there's a penalty for doing what you do. You do it because you have a sense of God, that there's a higher moral authority, period. V'yareta et Adonai Elohecha. The other vivid example, which is one of my favorite texts in the Torah, is in the first chapter of the book of Exodus. if you remember there, the Pharaoh, whatever his name was, instructs the Egyptian handmaidens to kill the firstborn Israelites because they're populating. We have to destroy their population. When you're delivering a child, you have to kill the firstborn males. And Shifra and Puah, who are two names that most of us don't know and should know, we don't know if they were Israelite handmaidens or Egyptian. The text is very unclear. But these two women told Pharaoh to go stick it. They were not going to adhere to his orders. And it says very explicitly they did so. We're not going to kill any Israelite children because they feared God. In other words, they were guided by a much higher authority than by instructions from Pharaoh. That's why with all these trials in history, and with Stalin and Hitler, they made me do it. It was everybody was killing the Jews, so I went along with them. In the Torah's eyes, that is a terrible excuse. And we're hearing it a lot today, even in our own society. Well, everybody else is thinking the same way, so therefore we should. Rising above the crowd, rising above the orders, being guided by a much higher authority than instructions that are popular, perhaps, is what the concept of Yirat Adonai is all about, fearing God. It doesn't mean that we're worried about lightning bolts coming to get us if we do the wrong thing. That's not the theology here. The theology is much greater than that. What guides our lives every day is the greatest power on earth, which is above human authority, which is God, which is what we try to discover each week when we read the Torah, of that higher impulse in society that really should be governing us. Not the media, not this, not that, but a much higher ethical and moral and spiritual language here. So fearing God, I would contend, is the one issue that's lacking and diminishing in our world today. You almost see it every single day. I read the papers, I'm appalled at the behavior of people, the random violence, the crime that's taking place, the gouging that's taking place of people now who are struggling to try to make it, and all kinds of shadow explanations of what's going on in the world. So we're not to take our orders from Pharaoh, from the czars, from the Ayatollah. It is much higher to have fear and awe of an unseen force in the world. Why do we make that leap when we understand that the greatest power in the world that makes our enemies flee when we open up the Torah ark, when we take the Torah out, our enemies scatter because of the Torah. That's what fearing God is all about. When you finally reach the point in your life where you realize that that's the most powerful part of your life and of the world, of the Jewish people, in every regard, then I believe the Torah finally has made its point. That is the purpose of our education, of our understanding. That hidden voice is so powerful that we have to adhere to it every single day. The unseen being, beyond the material world. People fear the seen. The Jewish people rose up in rebellion and said, we don't fear Pharaoh. Shifra and Puah didn't fear Pharaoh. They feared the unseen God, the Word of God. It's incredible if you really understand where we came from and why we're still around. But God is the creator of all. God is the greatest power on earth. Our lives, proven by history and certainly by the experience of the Jewish people. The unseen nature, which is what the Jewish people have tried to teach the world, that this is the conscience of the world. You might not see it, but it guides every single activity of this world, striving for real truth. Being attached, we always recite the Shema, in which we remember these tzitzit, which really are a reminder of slavery, because the ancient Egyptians used to wear tzitzit that demonstrated that they belonged to a master or someone else. And when we wear these tzitzit, we all wear the same. And the Torah, and that third paragraph of the Shema says very explicitly, we belong only to God and no human force beyond that. So we are, in a sense, we belong not to Pharaoh, but we belong to God. That is true freedom and true liberation when we reach that point in our workplaces, in our school places, wherever it is, that we do not worship any things or human beings, and when we forget that the ultimate power comes from that unseen force. That was all about. That's what the Jewish people have been dedicated to throughout our history. In fact, the rabbis taught that shlemut, or perfect peace and understanding, comes from being at one with God and with no one else and nothing else. And the fear of God is not feeling what God might do to us as a consequence if we do something wrong, but sensing that even when we do wrong, that we're guided by a higher authority. Why do you think the high holidays are called Yamim Nora'im, the days of fearing God? It's not because we come in fear, but what we try to do at Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is become more attached to this higher voice, which is to strive for Yirat Elohim, a fear of God, the fear of doing wrong, the fear of exploiting another human being. Real fear of that is engulfing, the lack of that is engulfing our world. What does the Torah say about the Amalekites when we read about the Amalekites at Purim time and Shabbat Zachor? The Amalekites were the terrorists who attacked the weak and the elderly in the back of the Israelites as they were going through the wilderness of Sinai. What does it say? They did not fear God. You can look it up. They did not fear God. Terrorists, evil, criminals, those who want to hurt other people have no sense of a moral compass. They're gone. And it's disintegrating. Every time I feel in the paper that God's heart is being stabbed, and that's a metaphor, obviously, I understand that the degradation of society gets even worse. You can't take God out of the equation. We've lost something very sacred and very important. And if there's one book you should read, is Natan Sharansky's book, Fear No Evil. And he speaks of how he was beaten and he went on hunger strikes and he had his little light brimming for 12 years. They tormented him. And his book is all about, he said, the only fear I have is doing what's wrong. About not doing what God wants me to do. I have no fear of the KGB. I had no fear of the Soviet Union. That's why he's heroic, Natan Sharansky. But it's so much of the Jewish people are like that as well. Jews fear more living in a world without God than the fear of any force, any power, any human power on this earth. Why do you think we wear a kippah? I was amused. I won't mention, one of the rabbis in the area wrote a long essay why he doesn't wear a kippah in the synagogue. And I was shocked because the kippah is all about Yirat Elohim. The Yiddish word for kippah is yarmulke. That is, there are two words there, Yirat Melech. So when we walk in our synagogue, the whole point is that our focus is beyond the material, especially when we're praying, when we're studying, when we wear the kippah, when we're at a sacred event, we remember our awareness of being in the presence of God. So your rabbi will never stop wearing a kippah, and you won't either, because it's a very important symbol of the Jewish people. I only fear the following: living in a world that is devoid of God, a world without Judaism, Torah, God, and goodness. Yirat Elohim. Yamim Noraim. I hope we've learned a little bit today. It's so core to the Torah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You inspire me. Please rise, everyone. Chasi Kaddish, page 184. You really do, Josh. Amen. V'chayechom u'yomechom uv'chayetecho Beit Yisrael Agala, Agala uv'zman karib. Amen. Yesh me'raba mevarach Ya'alam lo me'amaya Yiparach
Yiparach v'yishtabach Yipar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh Yittadar v'yittalev v'yittalal Shmei d'Kudasha Richu Le'elamim V'birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Tamihiran b'yomah
Together we begin the Amidah, Musaf LeShabbat, page 185 through the Kedusha. 187 will be together, and the remainder of the Amidah silently through page 192.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Aher Hagato, Hagibor, Hanoah, Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Nekonei Hakol, Ezocher Chasdei Avodim Ahad, Omehi Goher Lebnei
B'neihem Liman Shemo
V'Yahava, Melchazer Chokei Moshiach Mogein, Baruch atah Adonai,
Magin Avraham, Chokei Sarah, Gibor Elam Adonai, Mechayei Metim Rav Hoshia, Mori Hata, Mechaker Chayim Bechesed, Mechayei Metim Berachamim Rabim. Someh Noflim Rofei Oholim, Omatir Asurim, Omekayei Memunoto, Lishenei Afar, Nichamocha Ba'gevorot, Omidro Mehelah, Melech Memit Umechayeh, U'atzon Liyad Yeshua.
V'nehemon atal hachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hametim.
Kedusha, page 187. Na'aritz Chavanak Bishka. Kiso Siya Sarfei Kodesh, Makdishim Shimcha B'Kodesh. Zil Zev Yamar.
Na'aritz
Nakishecha. Kiso Siya Sarfei Kodesh. Makdishim Shimcha B'Kodesh. Hakatu Aya Nevi'echa. Ikara Zecher Yamar. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavot, Elo Kol Haaretz Kevodo.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavot,
וכבודו מלא יום אשר טוב שום זה וזה, איה מקום כבודו למתם ברוך יאמרו. העולם מקום כבודו, כבודו מעלה מעלה העולם, מקום כבודו, כבודו מעלה מעלה העולם, ושאר תו שואלים שואלים זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו, שאר תו שואלים שואלים זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומו יפן ברכה מביא אחרונה ממחליש שמו ערב ובוקר בכל יום צדיק אמרי ביום בשמה אומרים הוא יפן ברחמים המייחדים שמו ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד פעמיים ביעבה שמה אומרים שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד הוא אלוהינו אבינו מלכנו ומשינו ישמעו לך משנים ואת כל חי יוד לכם לאלוהים שני שני יהיה כל חי אני אדוני אלוהיכם ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהי ציון דור ודור הללויה Ata Shabbat Rotzita Kamadata. Yom HaShabbat Hazeh. יסלחו במלאכותך, שם בשבת. לשבת עבודת. אותי מנח לך. הטוב כי לא חלה לך. Kaddish Shalom, page 203. Amen. Amen. Eshmei Rabba Mevarach. Yalla Malal Meinamaya. Yiparach. Something for your back? Amen. 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 Uyase Shalom Aleinu Ve'Yakol Yisrael Yase Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'Yakol Yisrael Yase Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'Yakol Yisrael. Amen. Ein Keloheinu, page 204. Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemokeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi-Eloheinu, Mi-Adonenu, Mi-Kemokeinu, Mi-Kemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Elokeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shehi. rise for Aleinu. לעתיד גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו לא יהיה הרצון, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם אלוקינו כהם, יגור עלינו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נותן שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומשה יקרא בשמיים עמאה. ושכינת זו בגבי מרומי, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך. כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים עמהם, כי הארץ היא תחת עינו. אלוקינו לכבודך אדוני אלוהינו, לתקן עולם במלכות שלה וכל בני השריף ולשמך לבוס ולסכן ולשמתנו. תשמע כל לשון, לכבוש ולגתנו בגלל ולבותיך, ולא נהיה ללמד כמלכות שלך. ואמר, היה אדוני, על כל הארץ, היום ההוא, היום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו Finish with a hug. Please be seated, everyone. We're pausing here at the end to note the passing of Gil Florsheim, Zichrono Livracha, blessed memory, beloved father to Nan Buckler and Peter Florsheim, who was interred just this Erev Shabbat on Friday. We also note the passing of a very dear part of our regulars here on Shabbat, Jerry Long, who died suddenly after a short bout of very difficult. It's been a very difficult few weeks. Jerry will be missed. We send our condolences to Karen and to Meredith and to Jonathan and to his brother Stuart, who are all mourning in New Jersey, where Jerry was interred. We send our wishes for consolation and solace. We will miss Jerry tremendously. And we mark the yahrzeits this week of Jack Wright, Marianne Kliansky, Minnie Bain, William Ash, Harold Solomon, Hermine Biller, Zina Bokoff, Barbara Spiegel, Dorothy Fliegler, Ruth Greenberg, Herbert Kaplan, Charles Moses, Julia Stuhlberg, Miriam Burley, Samuel Gensler, Sylvia Hecht, George Haffitz, Anna Haffitz, Maurice Gelman, Abraham Gross, Goldie Waxman, Ruth Schiff, Louis Korn, Samuel Garfinkel, Samuel Rubenstein, Gloria Post, Joseph Dubin, Gary Fagan, I. Irving Rubin, Joseph Harity, Goldie Cartoz, Stephen Robbins, Gerald Robbins, Jesse Gray, Paul Ostroff, Frederick Weinstein, and Herbert Winkler, all of blessed memory. So those who are in mourning and those who are remembering yahrzeits here and at home, please rise for the Kaddish on page 207, our unending love for our dear ones. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabah, Yalma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, V'chayechon of Yomechon of Chayet Kol Beit Yisrael. V'agalau v'izman karev imru amen. Yeishmei Rabban Mevarach Le'lam Lomei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach. Yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal. Shmei Kudusha Barichu. Eilam im kol bechata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechmata. Damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. O se shalom b'imrumav. Huya se shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May they rest in peace and shalom. Our announcements, Elliot Korn. How did I guess? That's what you were on deck for.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our members, our guests, our streamers, and thank you for being here. And now I have to get the right piece of paper out of my pocket. So, I too want to express my thanks to Joel. Rabbi's right. You have no idea what went into this. And especially for the people who are in the room and who were in the room last week, especially for the people who are in the room and were in the room last week, and actually there's an explanation for that. It sounds so much better. And there's still a little fine-tuning to be done, as evidenced by that, but we're getting there, and I thank you for that. And I wish you a happy birthday. And we also celebrated the birthday of Meryl this week, and I wish you a happy birthday. She's one of our dedicated office volunteers every week, and we can't do it without all our wonderful volunteers. I've been asked to remind everyone, make sure you return your prayer books to the seat backs, or if you're on the front row, on the seat, so that they all look nice and orderly. We have our morning minyan Sunday through Friday here, on Thursdays in person, but always on Zoom. And we have some Bima Basket sponsors this week, Phyllis and Corey Weitzner, in honor of their 22nd anniversary, Sandra and Jerome Zakin, I hope I'm saying that right, in honor of Jerome's 90th birthday and their 10th anniversary, Kanahara. And a note, over $9,000 was collected this fiscal year because of your sponsorship of the Bima Baskets from Sisterhood. We appreciate your support, and they are also shared in the community. It's a joint effort, so that's a very good thing we're doing. Shabbat sponsors, the big one. Yvonne is sponsoring, oh, she stepped away from her seat, is sponsoring today's Kiddush in honor of Rabbi Weinsberg's rabbinic ordination, the 50th anniversary. So Mazel Tov on that. Special programming tomorrow. We have our semi-annual congregational meeting. It will be live on Zoom also for members. The doors open at 10:15 and the meeting begins at 11. And I'm told the meeting will start promptly at 11. Saul is leading our effort and doing a great job of leading that effort in the replacement of the bifold doors, the wall between the sanctuary and the social hall. That work has started. The old wall doors have been removed, and on Monday we'll be starting the removal of some block walls that have to be moved so that we can build new pockets for those doors to be stored in. So be careful over there, but thank you, Saul, for leading that effort.
June 20th, we'll have new doors.
Yes, June 20th, we will have the new doors. Let's see. Due to an update many members are finding emails from the TBS staff and our e-blast in their spam and the junk and the trash. So you need to check those files if you've not been receiving them lately. I know there's one particular person, they have sort of a private email server, and that server has been redirecting the emails directly to trash or wherever it goes, and it's been bouncing back to us. We can't control that. That's something that is external to our events and our ability. There will be an unveiling for Sheldon Silverstein on Sunday, May 22nd at 2 o'clock for those that would like to join Beverly and Nelson at the cemetery. And with that, I wish everyone a Shabbat. Oh, my wife. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I usually do that first, and it's not on the things I'm required to say. To all of our Torah readers and service leaders for the fine job that you do and have done. Thank you.
And thank you, Elliot, for, Joel and Serenade.
Just want to remind people, there's brunch tomorrow morning that is served before the congregational meeting.
Yeah, 10:15, right?
I don't think you mentioned that brunch.
Well, I think he did. Well, 10:15. I predict there will be bagels. I'm going to go out on a limb here. And the meeting's at 11. So I want to just take the time to thank Elliot, because you don't see Joel and Elliot. They're here so much, doing everything. And our congregation always owes you and your dear Dana our great thanks, gratitude for everything you do. And everybody else, I am proud of this congregation, and we have a lot to celebrate. We've done a lot this past year, and so we're looking forward to having a little time to enjoy our many accomplishments. So let's conclude. We have some food waiting for us. So let's conclude with Adon Olam on page 211, Bethany.
Adon Olam.
Adon Olam.
Hashem Allah.
Hashem Allah.
B'terem kol
Yitzir
nivra. Li'ed nasa.
Li'ed nasa.
B'chefsako.
Which cup did you use last night?
Hasam
Every shade.
Hashem.
Is that one you used? Vehu echad, v'ein sheni, laham shelo, ha'ira, v'li reshi, v'li tachli, v'lo ha'os, v'ha'misra, v'eli v'chai go'ali, v'eli v'etzara, v'nisi u'manosli, v'nat kosi v'yom le'ra, v'yahada, Afkid ruchi, v'yet isham, v'a'ira, v'im ruchi, Yeviati Adonai li v'lo yira, Adon olam Hashem Allah, v'terem kol yitzir nivra, v'yenasa b'chefsako, azay melech shemo nivra, Yisrael v'shamru, b'nei Yisrael Shabbat la'asot Shabbat l'dorotam, Berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti li olam ki sheshetim es Adonai, et hashamayim v'et haaretz v'yom hashvi shavat v'yinafash, al kein berachnai et yom hashabat, v'yikadshehu savri baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam borei, pri hagafen. Okay, this is going to be the signal that it's okay to eat now. Together, B'shutkem Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Let's eat. Shalom. Beth Sholom, everybody. I'm Jewish, that's all. She's welcome anytime. Shabbat Shalom, how are you? We want to make sure. How long are you going to be there? Right.